we've got a belief as spreads. We think the only way I can make more profit is if I bring in more people and do more jobs and, you know, more and more skimming. But that's only one way of making more profit. The other way you make more profit is you just target better jobs that pay more. It's finding someone who's reliable when you want to employ them. Yeah, 100%. There's so much involved with holiday pay, pension contributions, employers' liability insurance. Yeah, exactly, mate. And the investment needed and the commitment required to take on a member of staff it's a huge outlay and a big investment and a big commitment. And in terms of time as well, not just money, time, training them. So I don't want to be all negative, because I know that at some point, especially if you're sticking with plastering and you're going to be doing predominantly larger projects, like for builders, if you're doing sort of loft conversions, extensions, I had a run of these, then I would always say it's a team effort. Like, you need to be in that situation. I think it has to be a team effort, really, because number one is the time frames. A builder's going to want you in and out, and number two is it's the wear on the body. If you're doing loft on your own, or decent size extensions and things like that on your own, then it's going to wear you out. If you're trying to push the deadline for the builder and things, just having a labourer would get the ball rolling on it. And that would be my suggestion for anybody that is at that stage where the phone keeps ringing and they're busy. They're happy with the quality of the leads as well, because that's important. Happy with the quality of the leads that are coming in, and your work is consistent. Like, you're consistently 8 weeks ahead, you're consistently 6 weeks ahead. The leads are consistent, then you might want to consider. And also, like I mentioned, if the nature of your work involves you having to slog it every day, skimming, rendering, things like that, then you might want to consider hiring a member of staff in. But I would always start small. I would start with a labourer. I would keep him as a labourer until you're confident that your business can sustain a member of staff, and you're confident that he's going to be a good fit for your business. So rather than going, rather than trying to run before you can walk and hiring spreads, paying £200 a day or £250 a day, whatever it is they want, that's gonna, if your business is still young and you just starting to bring in leads and find your feet, they're gonna gobble all your profits up big time, because the jobs will take longer than you think. You get your prices whittled down, where you're now trying to price in for yourself and another spread. And in a domestic setting, that can be hard. You can almost price yourself out of the market, which is what I found I was doing a lot. So my churn rate was really high. I was having to look at a lot of jobs when it was me, Matt and Reese, and Curtis after Reese left. I was having to look at loads and loads of jobs, and they were unvetted. But my focus was keeping them boys in work, and that's a trap that I don't want you guys to fall into. If your business is young and you're bringing in lads, it can become about the lads and not about your business and your family. And if you're a generous person by nature, you want to look after people and things like that, you can feel obliged to look after them to the point where you're at a loss. You can be not even at a loss, but you might be in a situation where you end, like I was, where you end up paying their pensions, you end up paying for their uniforms and a van and tools, holiday pay. You get your hours down, so you're working between 8 and 3 in your local area. This is where I got to, and the lads could go home and switch off at 5 o'clock, but I couldn't. So I was there chasing up leads, dealing with cancellations, dealing with non-payers, late payers. The van's breaking down, I'll be repairing them, replacing them, the insurance on the vans, and it's a lot of pressure. So I'm not, like I say, I don't want it to be, I'm not trying to burst a bubble and say it's not possible, because it is possible. But I think if you're going to take on stuff, you've got to start small, very, very small. Take on a labourer first, maybe part-time. So even if you're busy now, and let's say you've been going 2-3 years, the phone keeps ringing, you're busy, you've got 6 weeks ahead, you're making some decent profit. Just because that's happening right now, it doesn't mean that's going to happen year in and year out for the foreseeable future. We can easily hit a wall, and it can change overnight. So that's why I'd suggest take on a lad part-time, couple of days a week, labourer, and build from there. See how you get on going. And I would say labourer as well, not apprentice initially at first, not an apprentice at first. And like Mark's touched on there, the reason being, guys, is when you take on an apprentice through a college, you have to employ them via contract, and it has to be a minimum hours worked per week. You're going to be paying for them to go to college for one day. I'm going back a couple of years now, but I don't know how the rules have changed. Me and Rich were talking about this over brekkie. I think the rules have changed a little bit, and there's a bit more funding offered down to the business owner now. But when I took Curtis on, I think I got about 1,500 quid for my trouble, but that doesn't even scratch the surface in the way of the outlay and the time investment and the costs that you have to cough up long term for an apprentice, especially when you factor in the time lost on jobs where you're babysitting them, teaching them to do things and having to shadow them, and you can't really leave them unsupervised, especially given that they're so young as well. So the apprentice, I think, is more for somebody that's had a little bit of experience with a staff member, maybe a labourer. They've kind of clued up with what's going to be expected. The business is established. They've got some really good, solid leads that are coming in now. Their lead gen system's locked in through using these platforms shown on the group, and everything's consistent. Then you might want to look into an apprentice. But when you do, make sure you find the right kid, because I've been through about 4 or 5 of them over the years, and they start off keen, but unless you get someone like Colby Barr, for example, who Mark Neeson works with, who's got the spark and who wants to do it, who's passionate and driven, then you might find that it's all one way. Like you're giving him the opportunity there and giving him the pathway. But what's that saying? You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's like that kind of thing. So even with the best intentions, unless you get the right kid, won't work out. So do due diligence on who it is that you're going to bring into your business as well. Make sure that they're not just a mate. Not saying it won't work if you bring a mate into your business, but problem is with bringing mates in, that relationship of we're mates, sometimes that can bleed into your graft, and you have to establish early on, you are the gaffer, you are the boss, and the buck stops with you, and you're answerable for the job. It's your name on the side of the van. I'm not saying you have to end up being a drill sergeant and being horrible and being bossy and things like that, but you do have to establish boundaries, and you do have to be assertive with your staff. You do have to let them know your expectation, and that has to be done early on. It's no good letting them have a free run for 6 months, turn up when they want, doing half a job, and then leaving shit everywhere, and you're not saying anything every day, and then all of a sudden you lose your shit with them. You've got to establish these sort of ground rules early on, as soon as they come into your business. And again, these are mistakes I made being young, taking on lads, trying to keep it jolly, trying to keep the banter up on site, keep it happy. People, if they see that you're a little bit soft, a little bit, what's the word? Some people mistake kindness for weakness, and they think, oh, he ain't going to say anything, he ain't going to do anything. Before you know it, I've had lads poach materials off me when I've gone off pricing jobs. They've loaded their vans up with my materials that are on site. I've had lads poach customers off me, where there's heard me. One particular lad heard me talking to the customer about pricing another room. When I'd gone down the road, he had a chat with her and offered to do it for half the price. And luckily, she phoned me later and told me what he'd done. So I could sit here now telling you all sorts of horror stories about taking on staff. But again, I'm only giving you one side of the coin, because of course the other side of the coin is that you're working in a fantastic team. You're bouncing off each other. You're spreading the workload out. You've got a big hit on. You can mix up more. You can do more. You can produce more. You can earn more, but only if they're on a wage that doesn't gobble up your profit too much. And that's why I think bringing in a part-time member of staff initially would be the way forward to go. As soon as we get into that van in the mornings, our day, we're flat out, aren't we? We don't get time to fuck about, scrolling on TikTok, and we have to get our heads down and earn profit, and time is money. And if they're not willing to join in with that kind of work ethic, or the bit work shy, it's not going to work out. You can train them so much, but there's that old saying, hire character, train skill, and I agree with that, definitely. They've got to have character. They've got to have a little bit of character there, and they've got to have a little bit of conscientiousness and a bit about them. They've got to be good with your customers. If you're a domestic plasterer, predominantly doing domestic jobs, if you bring the wrong person into your business, we're in people's homes now, where we're expected to communicate politely with our customers, keep their place clean, be respectful. Like I said, even if they're not very good with their hands at the beginning, make sure they're a good kid, because the last thing you want is things going missing off jobs, which again, this has happened to me. People robbing off you, could even rob off the customers. I've heard some stories on Trial Talk where kids have gone through customers' drawers and took money and took watches and things like that. So just be very, very careful. I'm not trying to throw young lads under the bus and say they're all the same. We know they're not all the same. There's some real good kids out there, and I've had some really good kids. I mean, Matt was only 18 when he first come with me, and we had over 10 years of great relationship, and I trained him up from scratch. He'd become as good as me on the tools. I could send him out to projects on his own. I gave him access to my trade accounts. I got him a company van, uniform, and it was fantastic. I got him a fuel card. So from a business point of view, I got to a situation where I could say, listen, this is this week's projects. I've had my own projects, so I'd go off doing domestics, and I'd give him a job list and say, you're working on this project this week. I wouldn't have to go out and inspect his work. I would just leave him to it. He had access to materials, fuel, everything he needed. He had all the tools, the van, etc. And some summer months I was cleaning up doing that, and it was brilliant. But to build to that level where I could get Matt actually like automated, if you like, where I've or almost duplicated myself, where he's going off in my van with my business and creating income for the business. To get to that level took me maybe 5 or 6 years of hard trial and error, and training Matt, getting his finish correct, training him how to deal with customers, communicating how clean he needed to be. And what I'm saying is it can work when you take on staff and hire plasterers, and you can get your business to the stage where you're sort of expanding, where it's not just on the tools. You're charging yourself out, but you're also making the money on the lads that you've got working for you as well. So it's a positive thing. But on the flip side of that, was the demand on my focus and my time, in order to orchestrate all this, like all these jobs going on, the management of the vehicles, the management of the suppliers, the management of the jobs, and all this, to orchestrate all that lot, pulled me away from my family and pulled me away from the focus, which should have been really on my profit, on my business. So you end up being, and Wayne could probably relate with this, I'm not sure if Wayne's on tonight, but you can end up getting in so deep that your whole focus just becomes about keeping the machine running, if you like, metaphorically speaking, and your whole focus can become just about keeping the lads in work. instead of focusing on specialization, on your profit margins, on like where do you want to work, who do you want to work for, how much do you want to earn a year, how much holidays do you want, what time do you want to be back home every night, and what time can you switch off and turn your business off and go and time with your family, make plans, talk about things you want to plan with your wife, with your kids, because I couldn't do any of that. I was too tunnel visioned and I had too much to do, so I didn't have time to do any of that. And again, that's why this group's here, guys, because I don't want you guys falling into the same trap that I did. If you're going to take on staff, number one, automate the shit out of your business using the systems that I'm showing you in this group. Because if you are going to take on staff, it's even more important that you automate your business in the way of CRMs. Get your book of P expenses sorted. Make sure you're tracking your expenses. Make sure that you are linked up with some sort of accounting software, because I didn't have that when I had Matt. Didn't have any accounting software at all, so I was doing everything sort of not pen to paper, but on the laptop, columns and spreadsheets, and long-winded ways of doing it, which didn't help with the whole time demand and all that. So automate the shit out of your business first. Make sure you've got a solid lead generation system before you take on staff. Not just because you're busy for a few months. Make sure you've got a solid lead generation system. So your leads are, for the last couple of years, your leads have been coming in consistent. Make sure that you specialise before you take on staff. So that's the whole focus on this group, isn't it? We're specialising in a niche pocket of plastering, so that way we can get our prices up. Once you can get your prices up, then you're more prone to take a member of staff on, because now you can afford to take a member of staff on. Make sure that you're making a really good markup on this person that you're bringing into your business. Don't just think to yourself, I'll make 40 quid on him a day. It's not enough. There's no point. Even 50 quid, there's no point. You might like the guy. It might be nice working in a team. It might be nice being able to finish early and leave him to trial up and clean up, and you can go off focusing on other things. It might be nice, but if you're not making enough of a margin on that person, there's no point in being there. It's completely pointless. The only way we can make a good margin is by getting our prices up high, guys, and that's by specialising. You could say, oh, well, let's try and pay him as little as possible. That's not a good strategy, because pay peanuts, get monkeys, don't you? That's the thing. So my focus when I had the boys was, I was thinking, if I make this job position so valuable and so ideal for him, where he hasn't got to worry about a van, the insurance, the maintenance, the tax, and all the repairs and all that shit. He hasn't got to worry about that. He's working within 10-15 mile radius of his house, and he's working really, really good hours, 8 till 3 every day. That's perfect job. I weren't paying him amazing wages. He was on 27.5 grand a year. But he had the van on top, I think he took home 600 quid or but again, guys, we were doing like really, really small sets. So we'd do a bit of prep, and then we'd do 2 little mixes. Or if he was on his own, he'd do some prep in the morning, bite to eat, then he'd do a couple of mixes. He'd be done for free, and that was his day every single day. Never worked weekends. So that's a model that you could use in your business if you want to take on staff, where instead of thinking I need to bring in a self-employed person and pay them 250 or 300, whatever it is, that's going to be extremely difficult for a sole trader plasterer that is relying on domestic projects and things like that. That's going to be hard to pay them sort of wages out every week. So the model that would work, and that worked for me, would be to bring in a very, very young lad, train him from absolute scratch. He's not going to be on very much money, and I know as the years pass, it'd be like 15 grand, 18 grand, 20 grand, 22 grand, 25 grand. You can start paying him more and more on salary, and then over a period of years, he'll start paying for himself. But again, I wouldn't be doing anything staff-wise until them 2 boxes are ticked. Automated your business as much as you can anyway, and then specialising in a niche is what I would be looking to do, guys. And I'm not actually planning to take on full-time staff at the moment. I mean, when Louis grows up a bit, maybe when he's old enough where, you know, he doesn't really need to play with dad anymore when I get home from work, and, you know, my missus don't really need as much assistance anymore, maybe I could think, okay, I'll go back into hiring staff again and things like that. But I've got no plans to do that right now, because I've targeted jobs that don't actually require full-time staff for me. And this is the joy of Google marketing and targeted marketing, guys. We've got a belief as spreads. We think the only way I can make more profit is if I bring in more people and do more jobs and, you know, more and more skimming. But that's only one way of making more profit. The other way you make more profit is you just target better jobs that pay more. You target jobs that don't need staff members. So an example of that would be damp proofing, cork sole, internal wall insulation, even what Joel's doing. Joel's now brought in machinery, so he doesn't have staff members. He doesn't need staff members. He's got machinery that does the job for him. So things like that, you know, modern day technology, learning how to target the right jobs using Google, these are ways that we can earn high profit and not necessarily need a staff member beside you. So have a think about that. Just have a long think about it and ask yourself them questions.